8 years after the mission begins, Elysium receives a final message from Earth: "You're all that's left of us. Good luck, God bless, and Godspeed." Only a few crew members, including Gallo, ever see the message. Sometime later, Corporal Bauer suddenly wakes up inside a hypersleep chamber. He is confused, suffering from partial memory loss, and has no idea where he is. As he disconnects the tubes and wires attached to his body, the ship's power suddenly shuts down. Fortunately, he finds a flashlight nearby and starts exploring the area. Bauer discovers that every hypersleep pod is empty except for one containing Lieutenant Peyton. Looking at his own pod helps him remember his name, but he still cannot recall much else. The ship appears deserted, and the control systems are completely offline. While searching the room, he finds his locker, some clothes, and a photograph of his girlfriend. He then tries to enter the bridge, but the door is locked. Scattered tools and deep scratches on the surface suggest that someone had desperately tried to escape from the other side. Frustrated and desperate, Bauer repeatedly pounds on Peyton's pod, but nothing happens. Later, while shaving his beard, Bauer feels the ship suddenly shake. Moments afterward, Peyton's hypersleep chamber opens. Like Bauer, he is confused and struggling with memory loss. Neither of them can remember their destination or the purpose of the mission, but they still recall their training. Using his knowledge, Peyton locates the emergency power system and restores electricity to the control panel. However, when they attempt to contact the rest of the crew, no one responds. Suddenly, the ship shakes once again, and strange noises echo through the ventilation shafts, hinting that they may not be alone aboard the vessel. Peyton believes the strange shaking is caused by the ship's unstable nuclear reactor. According to him, every power surge forces the system to reboot itself, which is why the ship keeps trembling. Realizing they need to get out of the room, Bauer climbs into the ventilation shafts while Peyton guides him through the communication system using the ship's maps. At first, Bauer finds nothing unusual, but after a while he notices a spider crawling through the vents and decides to follow it. Eventually, he slips and crashes into a metal grill, where he discovers the body of another crew member. After struggling through the cramped space, which turns out to be a boot locker, Bauer finally pushes the grill loose and drops into a nearby room. However, leaving the vents causes him to lose contact with Peyton. The door in the room can be opened, so Bauer begins exploring the ship's hallways. While searching, he encounters a woman named Nadia. Holding a knife to him, she searches his pockets and demands that he remove his boots. Before she can do anything else, strange growling sounds echo down the hallway. Hearing the noises, Nadia immediately backs away. Moments later, a group of terrifying humanoid creatures appears and drags away the hanging body. Horrified by what he sees, Bauer runs for his life and makes his way back to the boot locker room, where he hides inside the ventilation shafts. Once he returns to that area, his communication link with Peyton starts working again. To avoid being discovered, Bauer covers his communicator so the creatures cannot hear their conversation. One of the creatures enters the room and finds the dead crew member who had fallen from the vents. It grabs the body and leaves. After making sure the area is clear, Bauer contacts Peyton and explains everything he has seen. Bauer suggests trying to reach the bridge, but Peyton believes there is nobody left there. He also reminds Bauer that no rescue is coming because the ship was never designed to return to Earth. As they talk, more of Bauer's memories begin to return. He remembers Tanis, the distant planet they were sent to colonize, and recalls seeing it on television when he was a child. He also remembers having a lover and realizes that crew members were allowed to bring their spouses on the mission. That means his partner, and Peyton's as well, could still be somewhere on the ship. Determined to find them before the creatures do, Bauer wants to begin searching immediately. While looking around the room, Bauer discovers a storage closet containing anti-riot weapons. He grabs one of the guns, preparing himself for whatever dangers may be waiting ahead. Bauer asks Peyton to guide him through the ship so he can reach the reactor bay and manually restart the system. As he moves through the hallways, he notices someone walking nearby and quickly hides. At the same time, he realizes that his hands are shaking uncontrollably, which could be a sign of Pandorum, a mental disorder caused by the stress of deep space travel. The condition can drive people insane and make them violent. To explain the danger, Peyton tells Bauer about the failed Eden mission. During that voyage, one of the officers suffered a psychological breakdown. Believing the mission was evil, he released all the hypersleep pods into space, killing everyone on board. As Bauer continues exploring, he has no idea that something is following him. He soon discovers another body hanging from the ceiling, but unlike the others, this person is still alive. The survivor is Shepard from Team 4. Mistaking Bauer for one of the creatures, Shepard attacks him, but Bauer quickly calms him down and helps him escape the trap. Unfortunately, Shepard knows very little about what is happening and refuses to take orders. Before they can discuss anything further, several creatures appear at the end of the hallway. The two men immediately run for their lives. Bauer successfully finds a hiding place, but Shepard accidentally falls into another trap. The creatures quickly swarm him and begin feeding on him. The creatures start chasing him through the ship until he falls from a high platform. Just before he can be caught, another crew member suddenly grabs him and pulls him into a locked room. The man is named Man, but he cannot speak English, making communication extremely difficult. Even so, Bauer notices the tattoo on Man's arm and learns that he belongs to the agriculture unit. Bauer explains that he is from the flight unit and knows how to operate the ship, so he asks Man to stay safe while he continues searching for the reactor. After losing contact with Peyton once again, Bauer eventually reaches the cargo area. There, Nadia suddenly attacks him and easily overpowers him. Before she can do anything else, Man arrives and rescues Bauer. Man and Nadia immediately begin fighting each other, but Bauer stops the conflict by firing his weapon into the air. He tells them that fighting each other will only get them killed and that they need to work together if they want to survive. When Bauer promises that he may be able to take control of the ship once the reactor is repaired, Nadia finally agrees to help and leads them toward the correct route. The group arrives at a secured door that can only be opened during one of the reactor's power surges. While they wait, the creatures begin closing in on them. Bauer holds them off with his weapon long enough for the surge to occur, allowing the door to open just in time. Inside, Bauer discovers the place where Nadia has been surviving for all these years, the embryonic chamber. This section of the ship stores animals and other life forms meant to repopulate the new planet. However, nearly 30% of the specimens have already been lost. Nadia also reveals that the 4 people who originally woke up with her are now dead. As they talk, Nadia admits that she is also suffering from partial memory loss. She then shares some of the insects she has been eating to stay alive, giving the group a brief chance to rest before continuing their dangerous journey. A short time later, a young naked man suddenly crawls out from among the cables. It is Gallo, who claims that he came from the bridge before collapsing unconscious. Gallo explains that he was forced to kill the rest of his team after they were driven insane by Pandorum and attacked him. According to him, that is why he is covered in blood. Meanwhile, Bauer, Nadia, and Man continue their journey toward the reactor. Along the way, they pass through a massive hypersleep chamber. Most of the pods are empty because the area has become the creature's primary hunting ground. As they move through the chamber, Man pauses to observe something nearby. Suddenly, the floor beneath them collapses, sending them crashing into a sewer-like area filled with human bones. Although the fall is terrifying, it ends up saving their lives. A creature arrives moments later but cannot see them hiding below. Once the monster leaves, they climb out of the pit, only to discover that it has been waiting for them. The creature immediately attacks. At first, it easily overpowers Bauer and Nadia, but the situation changes when Man arrives and pulls the monster away from them. Working together, the 3 survivors manage to kill the creature. Unfortunately, another monster has been watching the fight from a distance. It lets out a call that attracts more of its kind, both to feed on the dead creature and to hunt the humans. As the trio flees, they notice one of the hypersleep pods opening and a crew member waking up. Sadly, they have no chance to help him. The creatures quickly swarm the helpless man and tear him apart. The survivors barely escape and reach a heavily barricaded chamber. Inside, they meet Leland, the ship's cook. Leland has been surviving by collecting water leaking into the ship and using the algae growing from it as food. He prepares a meal for the exhausted group while they recover. During their conversation, Nadia finally shares her theory about the creatures. She believes they were once members of the crew. Before the mission began, every officer was injected with an accelerator designed to help humans adapt to the environment on Tanis. The substance was meant to speed up evolution, but Nadia thinks it may have mutated the crew into the monsters now roaming the ship. Leland overhears the discussion and confirms that he knows much more about what happened because he has been awake for a very long time. As he begins explaining the truth to Bauer and the others, Gallo is telling the same story to Peyton, though his goal seems to be driving Peyton toward insanity. Years earlier, Earth was destroyed by an unknown catastrophe. The crew received a final message informing them that humanity on Earth was gone and wishing them luck on their journey. After hearing the devastating news, Gallo lost all hope. The realization that there was no home left to return to shattered his mind. Gallo continues his manipulation, trying to push Peyton into a full mental breakdown and trigger Pandorum in the remaining crew. He argues that everyone should launch themselves in hypersleep pods, just like what happened during the failed Eden mission. But Peyton refuses, believing Bauer is still their only real chance of survival. As Gallo's behavior becomes more unstable, he starts bleeding from the nose and grows increasingly aggressive. He grabs a sedative weapon and forces Peyton to prepare a hypersleep pod so he can be launched away. Peyton pretends to obey, but instead he puts Gallo into hypersleep and avoids activating the launch. Elsewhere, the survivors finally reach the reactor room, the same place where the creatures are also resting. The creatures immediately begin hunting them. Man releases the walkway, crushing many of the creatures, then escapes. Bauer finally reaches the reactor and manages to restart it, restoring power across the ship and killing many of the mutants in the process. The creature leader attacks Man in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Man eventually wins and kills it, but hesitates when he finds the young creature nearby. That hesitation costs him his life. The young mutant takes advantage and slashes his throat. Leland arrives at the bridge pretending to be an ally, but Gallo kills him immediately with a sedative injection. Soon after, Bauer and Nadia break into the bridge and regroup with what remains of the crew. Bauer retrieves his weapon and accesses the ship's flight log, only to discover that 923 years have passed since the mission began. Gallo admits the truth openly, confirming what Bauer already suspects. He opens the ship's shutters, revealing nothing but endless darkness, no stars, no signals, nothing at all. In his final breakdown, Gallo claims there is no God, no law, and no meaning, only freedom and chaos. Bauer rejects this completely, believing that order and purpose still matter. He attacks Gallo in anger. But before the fight can end, Nadia notices something extraordinary: bioluminescent life forms floating outside the ship. They realize the truth: the ship has already reached Tanis centuries ago and is now resting at the bottom of an ocean. Gallo uses the distraction to attack Bauer again, but Nadia intervenes despite her injuries. The fight turns chaotic as Bauer becomes disoriented and hallucinates once more, firing wildly into the walls instead of at Gallo. The shot breaches the hull, and water rushes into the ship. The flooding destroys Gallo and the remaining creatures. In the chaos, Bauer and Nadia escape into one of the hypersleep pods. Realizing there is only enough oxygen for one of them, Bauer gives the mask to Nadia. The ship's emergency system activates and launches thousands of hypersleep capsules into the ocean. Bauer and Nadia surface near a shoreline, where they witness the other pods rising with them. For the first time, they understand the truth: they are not alone. In the final chaos, trust completely falls apart. The ship floods after a hull breach, wiping out Gallo and the remaining monsters. Bauer and Nadia barely escape in a hypersleep pod as the system launches thousands of capsules into the ocean. When they finally surface, they realize the shocking truth: the mission actually succeeded long ago, and Tanis was already reached. Humanity isn't lost, it has been waiting under the water for centuries, ready for a new beginning.